7 o'clock here on a Thursday night, and our State House insiders are with us. Our Democratic strategist, Antoine Seawright, our Republican strategist, Dave Wilson. Guys, as always, thank you for your time.
Absolutely, JR.
Lots of things to talk about. We're going to begin nationally, which actually affects us locally, the ongoing partial government shutdown. Still no end in sight here. Some efforts on behalf of Congress over the last day or two to try to get this thing over with, but that doesn't seem to be happening anytime soon.
Just today, the Senate voted on 2 proposals to reopen our government. One of them was a proposal that passed the Senate just before Christmas that would have given segue or given an opportunity for our government to be open while they negotiate on how do we solve the immigration back and forth. Unfortunately, it failed along partisan lines in the Senate, which was expected. At the end of the day, 800,000 federal workers are without employment. Saw a story today on CBS Network of how one federal worker who's been working for 30+ years now has $1.06 in her bank account. The Secretary of Commerce, billionaire Wilbur Ross, was on CNBC today saying he doesn't understand why these furloughed workers are relying on or going to food banks. It's clearly simple to me that this administration's out of touch and they're playing politics with people's lives.
This is a place where, let's just be honest, everybody's playing politics. Nobody really wants. They want to work on a solution because they say they need to say that they're working on a solution. And while there are proposals that are going back and forth on both sides, there are places where what the president's requesting, the Democrats are cutting out. What the Democrats are wanting, the president's refusing to work on. I mean, this is stalemate at its worst. And Antoine's right. I mean, you've got 800,000 people not working, not getting a paycheck, and that's a tough place to be. And this is a place where I think the bubble of Washington has absolutely secluded any real touch with what's going on at home in America by both sides of the aisle now.
All right, so Democrats, and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, she says they're not going to negotiate here until the government is reopened. For his part, the president says the Democrat Party is radicalized now, and that they're just out there and they're not willing to bend here.
Unfortunately, the president, again, is playing politics when Democrats are saying, you know what, let's do step 1 before we get to step 2. You've heard Democrats. I saw Mr. Clyburn this morning on CNN talk about, yes, we want to do border security and we're willing to come to the table to do border security. We're just not going to do a quote-unquote campaign wall. We're going to do things that make sense that the experts have declared that would help protect our border even more, strengthen our ports of entry, put a smart wall, fix the fencing along the way, add more officers, add more judges, make sure the facilities for when children come through, we do not have more children dying in the hands of American workers, and to make sure that we have policies in place that will push back on the Trump policy where kids are being snatched from their parents. That's what Democrats want to do, but we can't even get there, JR and Dave, until we reopen the government, and it just doesn't make sense.
This is a place where both sides are saying, we don't negotiate with terrorists. They see each other that way. We talk about. Hold on. Let's talk about this for a minute. We have seen cooperation that takes place on the state level. You and I have both seen cooperation that's across the aisle where people work together to make certain things happen. Your leader in the Senate and our leader over in the Senate worked together on education reform packages a few years ago. But what we have right now is platforming that's going on right now on both sides, trying to pivot against the other one as much as possible in what seems to be like a game of knock the other person off the top of the hill.
That's good, Dave, but that's not really true.
It is absolutely true with what's going on in Washington, D.C. right now.
Let me tell you what's not true. Democrats and some Republicans, we now see there are 5 in the Senate who say, you know what? Let's reopen the government. It doesn't make sense that workers have to suffer. People who are the backbones of our federal government, they have to suffer because of politics on one side or another. And so I think as this goes farther along, it's going to start to feel hotter and hotter on everyday people's lives. And so you're going to see where you're going to see more 2020 Republicans, especially in the Senate, where the map looks better for Democrats, to say, you know what, let's reopen the government and then let's get to immigration.
And it's going to end up being something that's both sides are going to have to capitulate on here, and both of them are going to have to say, I'm going to give a little bit right now. Neither one of them is doing that.
But you saw the president's tone change a little bit in his tweet about the State of the Union. You're starting to see him soften because, look, 71% of the American people say a wall is not worth the government shutdown by the Republicans. 68% of the American people blame Trump and the Republicans for the shutdown.
And the president, said straight up front, he said he would take responsibility for that because he feels that,
he
said
that then.
It is an important part of what needs to be done.
He said it then, Dave, but now that the pressure's on and people are holding him to his words, your party and the president are trying to shift blame.
The president's push has been for national security and for things to be done to protect the American people.
Tell me where Democrats are not for that. Just tell me where.
You're unwilling to do what needs to be done. Your party is saying, you know what, we're not going to make any push forward either.
That's not true.
Until you open the doors back up to our offices.
Democrats came to the table in the beginning.
They have not.
With Republicans. You remember? Republicans.
But what's their stipulation, Antoine? Their stipulation is we're not going to do anything in talking about this till you open the government back up.
No, Dave, you missed my point.
Where is it? Where do you get both people to the table?
Before the government shut down, Democrats and Republicans voted for border security. It's my point. And it was the president who torpedoed that.
On Dave's point, the president last weekend offered some concessions, saying, let's negotiate now, and he offered some concessions. And then the Democrats, again, Nancy Pelosi, saying, until the government's reopened, there's nothing.
I'm glad you brought up last weekend. Let me tell you about his proposal last weekend. Number one, the proposal about a short-term fix to DACA, where the Supreme Court twice have refused to hear a DACA hearing, which means DACA will be in place for another year. His proposal was a temporary fix. That's a non-starter for Democrats and Republicans. We did not deal with intimate domain, which is very critical to Republicans, and you had Republicans who said they would not vote for Trump's immigration plan. So say what you want about Democrats, that's not on us.
It is on every single person in Washington, D.C. who is a part of this discussion, Antoine, because none of them are working to bring a full
Dave, you cannot
party.
Say that in
They're not. Are they willing to talk about and bring real reform on border security to protect America from everything that's flowing across from the southern border before they open the government back up? Are they willing to protect the border before they open the doors?
We should call this Educational Thursday Night.
Because where we are right now is an uneducated public, which is why we do this every Thursday night.
Let me educate you on a few things. The number of illegals attempting to and crossing our border are down from 2 years ago. So this heightened manufactured outrage and crisis by the president,
except for all those people who are coming up from Central America,
it's all powerful.
Your party is the one who's saying, "Wait a minute, you're doing all this stuff and you're killing children that are coming across."
I'm trying to teach you a second.
They're trying.
That number's down, so this heightened crisis doesn't exist. The president talks about drugs and all these things coming into the country illegal. His own DEA said the drugs that come into this country come from legal ports of entry. So this heightened crisis saying that the world is falling apart. You guys campaign on this migrant van is coming. The world's going to be shut down because it's coming before the election. Well, here we are. Democrats won the House, and that migrant van never made its way. So for you to heighten this,
we talked about the migrant van coming up here the other day, Antoine, when we talked about people coming across the border and children being taken into custody. We talked about that just the other day. Apparently, we need to talk about that.
That ran on every Republican network, and the world was going to go crazy if that van made it. And the van, that wasn't even
Let's play the footage on that one.
We're going to have to leave the discussion there on that subject. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, a lot of potential presidential candidates making their way to South Carolina already. We're going to talk about that and more when we come back.